Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Accepted Authority. I'm Andy Marmont.
And I'm Greg Roworth.
And as always, we are talking about how to attract your ideal clients and build a more valuable consulting business. Each week, we talk about attracting and converting premium clients consistently and predictably by sharing our own experiences and mistakes as business owners and consultants. And today, we are going to talk specifically about how to attract our ideal clients using content. And we've each had ways and mistakes and things that work for us. So we'd love to go a bit more of a deep dive into how we do that. So what do you reckon, Greg? Good place to start?
Yeah, sounds great and very topical. I was just talking to one of my clients this week about content and, particularly, using content on LinkedIn, which is a pretty major vehicle for consultants to appear in and, to be promoting themselves. And, what I see as far as content goes, there are lots of different types of content that consultants are posting on LinkedIn. Often it's a share of someone else's quotes or share of someone else's stories, which are okay to give you a bit of a presence. But I think the best sort of content is what I call positioning content rather than information. And
yes,
perhaps, and you might like to reflect on this as well, but what I see, one of the major mistakes that consultants make when putting out content, it's more promotional or informational rather than positioning. So I can expand on that a bit further, but perhaps reflect on that first from your own perspective.
Yeah, totally. And I'm working with a client this week, and we've built out their content for the next 6 weeks. And one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of the initial ideas was all around the product. So talking about the product, but as we know, that's a lot of consultants will talk about their product as opposed to, as we always say on the authority, people buy outcomes, they don't buy your services. So I think that having that balance, it's okay to talk about your products, but probably having a balance, maybe every two out of every 10 posts could relate to, your business, but you need to also balance that with talking about things that are meaningful to your ideal clients, and, maybe sharing some lessons and sharing some stories and just getting some thought-provoking content out there. So it's not to say that obviously we're on LinkedIn to connect and to build relationships with our ideal clients. So we don't want to shy away from the fact that we're there there is a little bit of promotion, but I think balancing that with the idea that, as you say, Greg, we want to position ourselves as authority, and the stuff that we put out is going to be relevant and meaningful to our premium prospects.
That's right. And I think just to explain the distinction I have between positioning and promotion, promotion is about putting ourselves out there and being seen, so that perhaps when potential clients think of needing a service provider, then they've seen our promotions and will think of us. Positioning, from my perspective, is all about enhancing our profile as the accepted authority in our field, and really giving people a perspective that we are the standouts in what we do. So when they think of who's the best one to solve their problem, they would automatically think of us. Now, there's two elements to that. One is when we're promoting ourselves, we're really relying on someone to think, would they need our service? But when we're positioning ourselves as the expert, it's more about positioning ourselves as a solver of a problem. So it's not about the service we provide, but it's about the problem we solve. So
yes,
when we're positioned as the authority in solving a particular problem, the client doesn't necessarily have to be thinking about needing a service. You know, we're actually entering the conversation with our client a long way back in that buyer's journey. And we can become the authority in helping people understand what their problem is, understand what the best solution is. And when we get to that point, they automatically want us to help them solve the problem. Whereas on the promotion side, the buyer has to go through that buyer's journey almost on their own to get to the point where they recognize they need a service. And then we hope they'll come to us because of the promotion. So positioning is a much more powerful concept than promotion type content.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Greg. It's so powerful once you start thinking like that. It's certainly changed the way that I've approached, marketing, and particularly in consulting. But I think something that which sort of adds to your point, Greg, about we're playing the long game here. Yes, we want to attract the people that are ready, but it's a long game. Is that we know, research has told us that out of every 100 prospects, 50 are never going to buy from you. It doesn't matter how good you are. They're just not in the market. It's just not the right space. However, 43 to 48%, would be interested in the next 3 to 12 months. So there's potential buyer intent, but it won't be for a period of time. And then what we know is there's anywhere from 2 to 5% who are ready to buy right now. So the idea of what we're doing is we're building, and we're looking to attract those people that are ready to buy, but primarily the purpose of what we call top of the funnel content, or when we're, attraction content, is to build awareness for who we are and what we stand for and our authority, which is what you're talking about. And that's really where your marketing engine needs to focus. The leads will come, and they'll come in phases. It's not like putting up an ad, which I think is a common mistake that I've seen speaking to consultants, certainly the last sort of 5 or 6 months, is they come to me and they say, Andy, I've been advised to put up an ad on LinkedIn and it's done nothing for me. I sort of think, well, of course, that's exactly right. It's not going to work for you, because that's not how people buy in consulting. People want to know you and build that relationship with you, and then when they're ready, they can have a conversation. It's strategic, it's a strategic sales process. So exactly what you're saying, exactly what you're saying, Greg. And I think one of the things I'd like to explore is you've been running webinars, and you ran one last week. I'd love you to share how that went, but also how you used a tactic like webinars to build awareness and build some authority for your ideal prospects.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sandy. That's a great topic to talk about, because webinars are a really effective way to engage people in the content in a way that they're involved in the discussion, rather than just reading or watching a video. So a live webinar where you have interaction, and the way I run my webinar may be a lot different to how many people run it, where it's not just an information dump and you're hoping that people on the webinar might have some interaction through the chat. To me, well, let me take it back a step, talking about that information dump. One of the biggest mistakes I see consultants making with content is providing information, whether it's a webinar or whether it's a post on LinkedIn or whatever it is. It's about providing information. So topics like, the 5 ways to, or, the 7 keys to, whatever that you're leading to. I think used to be valuable content in the past, because you're displaying your knowledge and people can see that you're knowledgeable. The problem now is that there's just so much of that type of content around that, there's 7 articles on the 7 best ways to whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Just Google, 7 best ways to, and you'll see pages full of articles around whatever the topic is. So, when we provide information type content, I think for us now, it's just adding to the noise. It's the white noise out there. There's so much information. People don't need you to provide information. They can go on Google, as we said, and find it easily for free. So the difference in doing a webinar means you can actually have a discussion with people. And well, I called my webinar not an information dump, but an intervention, where I could really dig into the problems that individual people on the webinar are having. And because everyone has the same problems, with a target market, that's the benefit of really targeting and honing in on a specific target market, is they all have the same problems. So what's relevant to one person on the webinar is relevant to everyone. So you can really open up that webinar in a very interactive way. Sure, go through a framework, which is what I did. A framework that you're talking about, but at each point of discussion of that framework, I invited people to talk about their experience and their challenges there. And so that made it very real and interactive, and people got the chance to express themselves and have feedback on their specific problem. And the feedback for one was relevant to everyone. So it became more than an information dump or an ability to promote myself. It became a process where I've already started consulting with people on the webinar. I'm already part of their thinking process now about how to solve their problem, and I've got them to the point where they're thinking about their problem, recognizing it, maybe it is a deeper and a more impactful problem than they might have even thought about, or they know it's a problem, but they don't know what the solution is. So helping them in a real tangible way through the webinar, in a way, helps them change their beliefs about the problem. And I think, just to finalize this part of the discussion, is that when we present content, it shouldn't be about presenting information. It should be about changing people's beliefs so that they respond with, I've got to do something about this.
Yes, that's a really, thanks, Greg. That I think that the idea of webinar has been around for so long, but as you say, people now, and if we think about you listening or watching on this call, and you have a firm that's in, say, management consulting, maybe it's technology or software or HR, and you're considering how do we run these information sessions or these webinars. So what we're saying there, Greg, is probably structure it more around a problem and make it more interactive. Yes, use a framework to provide context, maybe highlight the reasons why it's such a problem, and maybe some sort of solutions, not deep, obviously, because that's your solution. But you want to get a bit of interaction and make people feel like they're exploring it together, as opposed to just going and being sold to direct down the line, which is obviously the 2019 style.
That's right. No, great summary of the process. Absolutely got it in one.
And maybe with that, the webinar, because I think, again, it's going to be really relevant to our audience who are watching or listening. If we talk about, so it's great to create a webinar and create a program, and that's really, to be honest, that's the easy bit. But the hard bit is actually getting people in the door. And, something that, I've probably attended or ran probably 10 webinars in the last sort of 2 to 3 years. And I think the common thing for me is that we complicate the advertising of the webinar, and we expect people just to sign up for it. And we create a nice program, and it has some good images of some people and all the great things. But essentially, like my takeaway to be able to get more people there is, one tactic I love is what's called a spear email, which is SPER. It's really, it's short, it's very specific, it's very targeted, and there's not a lot happening. Essentially, we're just saying, something like invitation. Hi, Greg. We've got a few people who are gathered together to talk about problem X. Would you like to join us, Greg? And that's essentially, if we do it in that way, rather than having a big long sort of invitation, I found that you get 60%, 70% sort of reply response. So if you are considering a webinar, then perhaps something like that could be a way. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Consider what it is, and then when you're doing your initial wave, just be direct. Whether that's on LinkedIn and also on email, I've seen it work lots. I mean, how have you found getting success, getting people there, getting registered people?
Yeah. Well, I think the relevant aspect of that and the spear email is very effective when you've already established a relationship with the people on your list. So I see that most of the people who turned up to my webinar, I already had, they've been on my list for a while. They've been exposed to previous content from me. They know me. So the webinar is in like the next level in building the relationship. And I think, I see consultants, professionals making the mistake of trying to do things too quickly. And, there are lots of people on Facebook, particularly, I see it, where they're promoting, create a webinar, do Facebook ads to get people to the webinar, and then try to sell them on the back end of the webinar. That model does work. It used to work more effectively, but webinars, and that whole style has diminished in its impact because has been so prevalent. But I think that does work. But the thing that people don't talk about, the secret that the gurus don't want you to know, if we can use that terminology, is that the Facebook ads cost you a fortune to get people, and is the result you get from the webinar actually going to pay for the Facebook ads? So, my perspective around this is marketing professional services is all about building a relationship of know, like, trust. People don't buy your services until they've been through that process. They don't buy your services until they trust you. So if you're using that style of, it's almost a spammy style of marketing now. Of, advertise a webinar, get you on a webinar, try to sell you something. I think people see through that. And that's why there's a lot of resistance to webinars now. So to me, building a relationship with someone before you invite them to a webinar, and building a relationship by adding value, providing useful content that helps change people's beliefs rather than the information style. So they're getting a perspective or a perception of you as a thought leader, as the accepted authority before they get on the webinar. So the webinar is like that, building a relationship, getting closer to going steady. We've had enough coffees and gone to see enough movies, will you be my girlfriend? It's almost like that stage of building a relationship. Come to the webinar and get to know me better, and I can get to know you better. And like that two-way webinar interaction gives people the opportunity to do that. And so I think, coming back to your question, that short email about here's what I've got to offer, are you interested, comes on the back of, you've built a solid relationship of, people know you, they like you. Now they want to think, well, can I actually trust this person and go
Yes.
to the next level.
Fantastic, Greg. Well, I think that it's been an excellent conversation. My sort of key takeaways around using content to at the top of funnel, or to build that awareness and build that authority. First of all, is that you think about authority as opposed to promotional content. So change people's beliefs as opposed to ram your products down their throat. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is, once you build that authority, things like webinars can be a real powerful tool. But in the webinar, Greg suggests, and I totally agree, is make it more of a conversation where you're actually consulting in that space as opposed to just providing information and trying to sell off the back of it. That's certainly the case for consulting. And probably the last thing that I sort of took away is also consider how you then market your webinar or your information session. Remember that in every 10 pieces of content, it's okay for a couple of pieces to be around your product. That's fine, but make the majority around changing people's beliefs, about positioning you as the authority. And over time, you're going to see that the more people that are going to be interested are going to come to you in that sort of wave. So, as always, thank you, Greg, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. Now, where can we find you?
Probably the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Greg Roworth and you'll find me. Otherwise, my website, businessflightpath.com. If you want some immediate information, you can access that there with some short ebooks I've got, or even the longer book, Cracking the Code. So yeah, plenty of ways to learn more about really solving your problems rather than getting to know me first. But they're the first steps to take, I think.
Awesome. And for me, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Andy Marmont, or our website is concurve.com.au. So thanks again. You've been listening to and watching the Accepted Authority. We'll see you next time.
Bye.